What's up, guys? I'm Tinashe Moyo, and welcome to another episode of Stride. Well, part two of a series, two-part series called Thumbnail. What's up, guys? I'm Tinashe Moyo, and welcome to another episode of Stride. Well, part two of a two-part series called Thumbnail Therapy. On this channel, my goal is to inspire people to take the first step towards their goals in life using my personal experiences, and we are continuing from where we left off, so sit back and enjoy. Episode 16, Tinashe Chikanda, a story of battling depression. Man, this was one of my most challenging covers to work on because I wanted to do my friend justice. So I'd initially asked him for a picture of him, particularly from a photo studio shoot, but he didn't really have any of those. So he sent me one particular image of himself. It was just a selfie taken from sort of like an aerial view. And he told me that it was actually his favorite picture. So I tried to run away from it a little bit. I actually got stressed, like trying to think how best I was gonna work with it, because considering that he said it was his favorite picture, then of course you definitely have to work with that. So it was quite challenging. I think I spent a couple of days just trying to think how best I was gonna execute the thumbnail cover. So yeah, I initially thought of just using text because I was just like, nah, I'm not really liking how the cover, I mean the image is, because you're so used to like your own images. You're literally in front of the camera, you're standing, so it's easy to work with images like that. But this one was quite different in its way. So I was just like, you know what? Let me just open the canvas in Photoshop. Let me just drop the image and just see how best I can work with that. So I had to do like a skeleton, right? Just to create the headline, his name, and the tagline, a story of, you know, battling depression. So it wasn't just his story of battling depression. I myself was actually battling depression working on his cover. Bro, you owe me one. So, anyways, I was just like, okay, fine. Let me cut out the image first and then see how best I can work with it. So I was successful in cutting out the image. It was challenging though, because I mean, there's the floor, there's the background, and everything. So yeah, I still went on to cut out the image. So now, looking at the theme of the episode, I was just like, okay, this is a story about depression. What is it that can, symbolize dark times? So I had to look for images of the woods. And again, I generated an image using AI. I had to look for a couple of actual photographed images on the FreePic and other free websites, but I couldn't really get an image that could actually work hand to hand with the image. So I just had to use AI, and then obviously trying to match the color of his jacket to actually create the tone of the poster. So I then had to look for a couple of his images as well on Instagram. So these were just to try and symbolize the different times of his life, because depression isn't really about one particular moment. Depression hits you in, so many different moments. So yeah, uh, that's the kind of approach that I, had to work with. And in the end, I actually came out with a cover that was pretty decent. It was a back and forth type of thing. So when you look at the original image and when you look at the final cover, before you see the original image, you wouldn't think that it was taken from sort of like an aerial view. You would just think like, oh, he was actually in front of the camera. He was actually trying to get into the camera. But no, it was a different pose. So I felt really challenged. I was stressed out, but it actually took me out of my comfort zone. I really enjoyed it. Had to play around with the lighting as well, just to give it a different feel, just to make sure all the images are syncing well. You don't want another image looking lighter than the other. If it's the main image, of course, it has to look lighter than the ones in the background, but you don't want the image in the background looking lighter than the actual image. And with, the interesting thing when it comes to editing, right? It's sort of like a no rules type of thing. You can do whatever you want. Some of the images in the back, they won't really be perfect. Like you end up cutting out someone's legs, cutting off someone's legs or even their shoulders just for them to fit in the back, because you just want to tuck them in the back. So sometimes when you see the image looking really beautiful, like, oh, this is nice, some of the stuff that we use as designers, when we're making it, we don't always make pretty stuff. So yeah, it was quite a challenging one. One of my favorite covers too. But yeah, I suffered a lot, but it was worthwhile. I came up with one decent cover, and I also had motion in mind. So when I was putting all of the pictures together, yeah, it was easy for me to animate and put motion graphics in it. So yeah, that was fun too. Episode 17, Stolen Words. Now, this is an interesting cover for me. In as much as I enjoyed all of these other covers, this was a different one for me. Since this was all about writing, I had different thoughts, different ideas in mind. And, I was really happy when I was going through these ideas, writing them down, just to see the best way I could execute the covers. So, first thing is first. This was more of an homage to my late uncle, Stanley Mopfuza, who was one of the most talented writers that I've ever met. So, in paying homage to my uncle, I wanted to sort of like create a look that was similar to his. My uncle wore spectacles. He used to wear formal clothes. And one of the interesting thing about this shoot, I took this image myself, again, the selfie using the camera. So I went for a formal look because that same time, when I did the whole writing thing, I had actually transitioned into a formal guy. I think it was a brief stint, but I had actually transformed into a formal guy. So the shirt that I was wearing when I did the photo shoot was the shirt that I actually wore, one of the shirts that I actually wore during that time. But interesting thing, this shirt actually belonged to my dad. So I used to steal it, sticky fingers. So yeah, I just thought like I could relive that moment, right? So with the glasses that I wore, these were not reading glasses, these were just fashion glasses. I actually bought these glasses in town for something like $5 because I actually wanted to zone in the character. So I actually felt proud when I bought those those glasses. So it was quite interesting for me. Now, when we look at the background, there's a library like behind the scenes. So my uncle had a he had his own little bookshelf that had so many novels, I think books that he used to buy since he was someone who liked reading a lot. He had yeah, he had a small shelf. So I was just like, okay, since it's homage to my uncle, let me try and get a sort of like a library, right? Since this was an episode based on writing, you know, you need a library with books to actually symbolize the story that you want to talk about. So I ended up generating the image uh, using AI again. So it actually made my life very, very easy. So, of course, when it comes to editing, you actually just add some more black using the paintbrush in Photoshop just to create sort of like a dark tone, at least to make my image pop out. So when it comes to the pose, right, I just wanted to symbolize writing. I wanted to hold a book and also hold a pen at the same time. But then I thought to myself, like, the pen could actually be a stretch. And also at the same time, I don't think the photo shoot would actually come out well with the pen. The pen could probably be distracting. So even though I was paying homage to my uncle when it comes to the poses and the look, I also took inspiration from the late great Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. When we look at Malcolm X was formal. He'd wear suits and he wore glasses and he had this cool haircut, right? Short hair. And the same goes for Martin Luther King Jr., right? He had formal short hair and like a mustache. Like my beard isn't really too grown for me to have sort of like a big mustache. And at the same time, I didn't want to like edit to add more beard to myself. Like I just wanted sort of like a natural look, just to keep things real. So it was sort of like it was a mashup actually of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, my late uncle, and also a little bit of my dad. Because I mean, someone actually told me like when I wore the glasses, I looked so much like my dad. So because my dad is also a reader too. He was also part of the journey when I was doing the whole writing thing. So I just had to mash up, and it was really interesting for me. I really like enjoyed creating this cover. For the headline, I initially thought of using some cursive font. Man, I don't know why I'm stuttering, but yeah, that type of font. But then I thought that it the font would probably not be as prominent on the cover as compared to the font that I used for the headline, Stolen Words. So I just had to stick to a thick, bold font so that people could actually see the headline. Oh, and one more thing that I actually forgot: the pose too was also, I think, it was also inspired by the old librarian. I think British folks, you could actually see. Is it Mozart or whatever? Beethoven. I don't know what I'm talking about, but that type of thing. Like the British, they've got this, or like the British chefs, they have this thing where they use one hand to like express, their professionalism and all of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed making this cover. This is, one for the ages for me. Episode 18: The Grip of Self-Isolation. Now, this was another fun and challenging project for me. I think always the story is what usually guides me towards creating a cover. So now this was merely based on self-isolation. So I wanted to, you know, at least show myself, even on the cover, that this is actually my story of me self-isolating myself. So I had the idea of posing in my room where I had to to look like I'm dejected in a way. So I have to be on my knees. I have to be, creating this expression. So, it was challenging to actually achieve that pose. Like from having to kneel, like I had to kneel, on the floor, on tiles. These tiles are really, really hard. So it's like the bones are really connecting because I'm more of a skinny guy myself, so there isn't much flesh when it comes to my legs. So like the bones are like hitting the tiles directly. So it was really painful, and I had to like tie some socks onto my legs, particularly on my feet, because I had to, position my feet in a way where I could actually rest my backside on my heels. So I had to put like socks on my feet just so they could be comfortable. And it was tough because I had to put the camera to like lower the camera in on a position where I could focus on myself and get a full body shot of myself when I'm kneeling down. I had never done that pose before, especially in my room. It's like a limited space. So I had to find ways to really make it work. I had to put sort of like boxes to get the right elevation. I had to do a back and forth. I had to kneel and crawl going towards the camera to make sure that the focus is good. I had to get back. I had to go back to the camera again. I mean, it was really tough, but I was also enjoying it at the same time. Like, if you really want to achieve something that's really, really good, you have to fight tooth and nail with whatever it is that you're doing to really get that pose. So I think it took me like 20 to 30 minutes to just get that pose done. And I was actually happy with the outcome of the image. And then when it came to editing, of course, this also had my family involved, like my cousins, in the story. So I needed pictures of at least just models that could symbolize my cousins, people with faces you can't really see. So I couldn't find model images. So I had to use AI. I had to generate at least people that I could put in the background, just behind me, people that could symbolize happiness. Like those were people that enjoyed, they never self isolated themselves. And then there's me in the foreground, uh, doing my own thing, just feeling sad, disappointed in all of it. So I also generated an image like the carpet that you see is actually part of an image that I actually generated. Like I needed uh, a space that could resemble my uncle's place because usually I felt so inferior and vulnerable at my late uncle's place in Borodale. So I needed to depict that space as well. So it didn't really have everything that I envisioned, everything that I wanted. So I had to generate again something like a couch, that I could play around with. So I ended up erasing some of the detail on that image so that I could then superimpose the the couch into the image. So I had to superimpose and then crop it out and duplicate to put it left and right so that it could actually look like a room. And I was really, really happy with the outcome. Now, here's the interesting thing. Sometimes people don't pay attention to detail until you actually spill out some detail. Uh, on the cover, you know, it's written The Grip of Isolation, but the actual title for the episode is The Grip of Self Isolation. Like, I think when I finished it up, I was actually rushing to get it done and rushing to just release it because I think I released that episode on my birthday, April 15th. So, yeah, I was pressed for time with so many things, but still, I managed to get it done. So yeah, I was really happy with how that turned out. Uh, One of my, best covers too. Episode 19, The Peaks and Valleys of Life. Now, this was a simple but interesting cover to work on with my really good friend, the beautiful, the amazing Ropafatso Gusha. So the image, right? I had to just ask the image from her because this was actually done uh, at a photo studio. So the image was generally a guide for me, and I needed an image that was more of her being in I think in a formal way. Obviously, considering how she is quite a well dressed, smart person. So I was just like, yeah, at least let me try and just build on that and just ride that wave. So I got the image, the background. I just wanted something simple. I generated it again. I didn't really uh, have an initial idea for the background. I first thought of using maybe a pink background. Of course, you just want to symbolize like the lady type of color, the feminine color. But I was just like, no, I just want to go a sort of like a different route. So I just had to generate an image of sort of like a passage, right? Then she's just there, with a cool pose. So I worked around that, cut out. So the image was easy to cut out because it was just shot on a solid white background. So there wasn't much work for me to do. So I did that. I got it done. Worked on the image that I had generated using AI, and you're just trying to remove some of the elements that can make the image look busy and just edit it a little bit Yeah, just to produce something really really cool. So I actually had more fun working on the headline itself. Like you can actually see, uh, you know, it's it's got a funky kind of look. Like I'm a huge fan of typography, so I just like making things look good, especially if it's text. Oh, you know, my heart always does backflips when it comes to playing around with text. So I really, really enjoyed it. Sketched it down a little bit just to see the best way I could execute it. And yeah, I got the beautiful outcome that I needed. And of course, it's me trying to just mimic movie posters. I don't just want to create something that's mediocre. I look at other people's thumbnail covers, like many YouTubers, podcasters, right? Most of them have they've got simple covers, and to each their own. It definitely works for their brand. It definitely works. So I completely respect that. But for me, I want to go in a different route. I want to make things look interesting. I'm more, I more of sort of like the drama king, right? I want things to be dramatic. I'm a huge fan of movies. So movies inspire me a lot when it comes to my work. So yeah, that's the kind of look that I wanted for Rupafadzo Gusha's cover, and it came out really well. I really love it. I enjoyed it. Episode 20, my first step towards public speaking. This was quite simple, but really, really enjoyable. I enjoyed working on it. So, my initial idea was to work with sort of like an old school look where I incorporate like newspaper texture and sort of like a newspaper text in the background, you know. So I had an image that I had extracted from the footage that was recorded when I went to the church. So I just wanted to create something different, something interesting. So when I placed the image on the canvas, the quality was really, really low. I even thought about playing with it in a different way, but it just didn't come out. So I was just stuck like, okay, how am I going to do this? You know, I even contemplated like buying a microphone just so I could do a photo shoot of myself and just, create the actual pose that I needed. But thankfully, I ended up receiving some of the pictures that were taken during my presentation, and they were sent by the prophet. So I was really happy I got the pictures. But the picture that I chose wasn't the picture that had the pose that I wanted. It was actually a simple pose, it's just a simple picture. And so I was just like, you know what? Done is better than perfect. Let me work with this. So because of that image, right, I could not create the concept that I wanted, the concept where I had to incorporate newspapers in the background. I just had to go for, you know, something simple. So I just had to play around with the headline, just tilt it a little bit. And then I added the tagline, history in the making. So it actually came from one of the late greats, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, one of his songs from the History album called History. So I was just like, okay, since I see myself as a motivational speaker, a public speaker. Like I see myself doing stuff like that more and more in the future. I was just like, okay, uh, you create history through the first step. So this is more like history in the making. So I was just like, okay, why not just use that as the tagline? So I just made it, history in the making. So it was actually inspired by that Michael Jackson song because I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna use it as the soundtrack on Instagram, just like what I use on different covers. Like I want the soundtrack to actually speak to the story itself. So, that's how it ended up coming together. I had to duplicate actually the headline and just place it in the back to just create some depth, to just create an interesting background since I could not use the newspapers. So sometimes you just have to work with what you've got. If you can't create what you initially thought, play around and see, how best you can create something beautiful. Because at the end of the day, when people see the final cover, no one knows that it was like the third or fourth option that you had. People just think, oh, it was the first and the only one. We as the creators, right, are the ones that know that, oh, I had to go through different stages you know, to create all of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed working on that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, it was fun. I really love it. And I think I'm gonna use the part of the image to as my new WhatsApp profile picture because it looks really, really good, especially with the microphone. At least I didn't have to break the bank to buy a new microphone. So yeah, something that I really enjoyed too. Uh okay. Just a bonus one, episode 21, thumbnail therapy. I mean, I really enjoy the cover too. Like playing around with the covers, creating a mosaic background, and then just finding a pose that's cool that symbolizes me enjoying the kind of work that I do. And yeah, just playing around with the headline thumbnail therapy. Now, here is something that I don't want to leave out for all of these things that I said, right? I mentioned using AI. I use AI to generate some of the images, right? But when it comes to most of my headlines, I also use AI. Like I said, I'm more of the drama king. So I want something that sounds different, something that sounds cool. So I can simply go to Gemini or Chat GPT, right? I go with the overview, the story, like, hey, I'm thinking of this, I've got this story. Can you help me with a title for my episode? Then AI can generate a couple of titles. Sometimes it might generate titles that you don't like, so you have to go back and forth like, no, I'm thinking of words like this, I'm thinking of words like these, I'm thinking of something like that. Can we play around with this? Like you have to create to have a conversation with it so that you know, build something that's really solid. So it's not just a thing where it's like I'm just saying, oh, I need a title for my episode. Bam, just like that, you take it. No, it's a conversation. Like hey, play around with this word because most of the time, right? I don't really have the actual title for an episode, and if I want to start playing around, it might actually take me time. So I end up going to AI sometimes, or even sometimes I can get to speak to my close friend called Chipoka Kora, who's a copywriter, really talented when it comes to her work. So I'm just like, yeah, can you help me come up with titles like this? So it's mostly AI. And then sometimes when AI doesn't, really give me something that I want, or I can't really say that. Sometimes I might just choose not to use it at all. And then I just go to people like, hey, I've got a story like this. What kind of title can we come up with? So, it's a bit of both. You can just play around with the AI and, just see what it gives you. I just felt like I couldn't leave this part out, because it's really important when it comes to my creative process, and it can actually spark, something in you. So, yeah, I hope you got something from it. So, the moral of the story is this. I know some of you might actually be asking, like, why do we need to see someone's behind the scenes look, particularly in regards to graphic designing? But then the reason behind all of that is to simply tell you guys that you just have to believe in yourself. I know we all have so many disciplines, but from my perspective, you know, if you believe in yourself, you can actually go far. Because I used to design fake movie posters a couple of years back, when I was starting out, when I was building my craft. And I used to do these things with my best friend Paddington. We would actually come up with fake ideas for, just fake movies. We would mock ourselves up on those posters. And then, I would always upload them on Facebook, even just write a brief overview of the fake movie. And then you'd actually get many people laughing at the stuff that I did. People would always be going like, "Oh, brother, I see you doing movies. Oh, please tell us when the movie is coming out so we can go see it. Ha ha ha, stupid." You know? But then that never stopped me. I kept on pushing and pushing because I knew my goal. I knew where I wanted to be. I still remember there was a point, I think one of my old phones, where I wrote down some notes of like the goals that I had, like particularly maybe creating a few movie posters, even for low budget movies. That's how big my dreams were. And I still have those goals. It might not happen next year, it might not happen in 5 years or 10 years' time, But Quincy Jones actually got his big break. I don't know, was it in his 40s or 50s when he really started working with Michael Jackson? So, as long as you believe in your dream, as long as you continue working on your stuff, you'll actually get to a point where you actually desire to be. And good things will always take time. So, you always have to enjoy and trust the process, because it requires a lot of patience. It's like, many people end up stopping because they are not patient with their process, and they are actually not trusting the process. But it actually takes time, and it's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes you might have to, you might do something, and then you have to go back to the drawing table, just to see if you can find another way or an avenue to get back to what you were working on, just to achieve that. So, you just have to be patient with yourself. And, when it comes to the finished package, usually as human beings, this is just human nature. We are so used to scrutinizing any finished package that we see. We've got people with different professions, We've got people like me, a graphic and a motion designer. We've got engineers, right? We've got people that are into beauty therapy. people that are into printing, lawyers, all sorts of things. What we normally see on a day-to-day basis is pretty much the finished package. But we don't really know about that person's behind the scenes. But then if you know about that, you can at least get a sense of appreciation in regards to whatever those people do. I mean, a good example is my good friend Abigail Ndowoka. I mean, she's a really good lawyer in my books, right? But then we see the finished package. She drives a beautiful X-Trail, and then the scrutinization, some people can just go like, oh, she's just trying to be big, but she isn't. But she had to work really, really hard. Like, I know some of the things that she had to endure before she actually became a lawyer. Now, I can't tell you what it is that she endured. I will let her tell you herself when we do an episode, right? But then the behind the scenes story is actually much more important. It will actually make you understand and respect people or whatever it is, the finished package that you see even more, right? If you think that maybe I'm bluffing, maybe I'm lying, that Abi is a really good lawyer, well, I think you can simply break maybe one or two of the 10 commandments: kill, steal, and then give her a call. She will actually come to you and then she can help you out. That's when you can see how good she is. And even when it comes to things like printing, I've got a really good friend of mine called Samantha, but we call her Sammy because it's less complicated. She does printing. She's she's a designer, but she also does printing as well, right? So I initially asked her to print a short for me, a stride short. Now, she texted me during the process, right? And she was just like, "Oh man, you're gonna kill me. I messed up during the printing." And I was like, What happened?" So she sent me a picture of the short. When she was printing, there was a part that didn't really stick onto the material. So she was just like, "Yeah, this part was messed up. So I'm going to find a way to patch it up and just put another layer on top of it." Then I was just like, you know what? It's fine. As long as you've got a solution, that's still fine. I will respect the fact that you you actually came to me and just opened up like, "Oh, bro, I messed up." So when I got the short, right, I didn't want to like change, like I'm gonna give you another so that you can work on it. No, I actually wanted that because of its imperfections, right? When I wore the short, like even to this day, I still have it. When I wore it, it's like some people actually went crazy, like, "Oh, I actually want a short myself. Like, that's dope. That's dope." But then no one knows, the mistakes, like all the hardships that Semi had to go through to make that thing look good. No one sees that imperfection. So at least if people get to know a behind the scenes story of, be it what you do or any other product that if you know what the process was like, it gives you a sense of appreciation. And I'm sure it actually motivates you to work on what it is that you need to work on and to actually build patience and understand that the word called process is not just a term used by people like, "Oh, trust the process." Some people just use it just for the sake of using it, but it actually means something. And I hope that I was able to make you understand the idea, the aspect of the process through one of the things that I'm really passionate about. Okay, so we have come to the end of the episode. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch the two-part series. You know, when I looked at my YouTube account, the YouTube studio, I noticed that when I released part one, I think I only had like 3 views. So I was just like, man, okay, this is probably uh, some of the people that were actually asking about Stride, like when are we getting the next video? So in the back of my mind, I was just like, I wish it could get to like 12 views so that like Jesus Christ, I could have my own 12 disciples. But anyways, I usually don't want to let the viewership count determine my next move. Because if you base your actions on that, you're never gonna release anything. So I'm just like, instead of thinking about views, let me just think about doing. So yeah, my goal is to just help people in the best way I can. And speaking of helping, it just reminds me of the conversation, this conversation I was just having with a good friend of mine called Glenn. In case you're wondering, I think I spoke about Glenn in the first part. In case you're wondering, Glenn is simply short for Glenn Pa. Whoops. uh, so, we were just talking, just like the usual conversations that we have. And then I just said to him, like, I think because of the way I like to help people and me being a tall person, I guess my totem is a ladder. Yep, sounds stupid, but that's what we came up with. So maybe just a bit about Glenn. Like I said, Glenn is a really good friend of mine, quite young and dumb, of course. Pretty ambitious, but broke. And funny thing, it's like he's a huge fan of this whole mumble rap music. Sometimes when we're just walking down the streets, you just see him rubbing his hands or wiping his stupid face, and then you just hear him going like, moonlight, moonlight, moonlight. Like, dude, what the hell, man? In his mind, he actually thinks that he sounds cool. But then what I get to hear is the sound of an old idling truck, car, a bus or tractor. You know what I mean? But yeah, jokes aside, apart from that, he's a really good dude. I'm really happy to have him as one of my friends. And one of the things that enticed me was just during one conversation that we had. He just stated that he wanted to do video editing. So I was just like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. It's part of what I do. So I'd be happy to help you. Ladder, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I'm supposed to end the video now. So yeah, if you've been getting value from my content, please leave your thoughts in the comments section. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do leave a like. And if you haven't subscribed to my to my channel, please do subscribe. Let's grow together. But if you have subscribed, do share the link with anyone you can think of. And yeah, let's continue growing together. So this is from me to you. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. Go. Whoops.